Okay, so it's time for another drawing time lapse, but this time it should probably be a lot better because I actually have a pretty decent microphone now. This time it's of a new character I basically just made, but I had the idea of them for a long time now, named Luci. Basically, the very primitive story idea I have of them is that a little boy finds them lying around on Earth, and then they sort of describe to the little boy that they need to get back to the moon somehow, which is where they came from in the first place. I obviously don't have that many specific story ideas in there yet, but definitely seems like a good starting point, especially when the character design is good enough. Yeah, even though I've had this character in my mind as a concept for a long time, I haven't actually drawn them at all until literally just like yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever. But I feel like I like the design enough to actually go through with a full sketch and then also a actual full drawing. I feel like I spent most of the time with this drawing just like adjusting proportions and colors of things to fit the initial sketch I just did. I always like, or at least some of the time, I just create a sketch that I really like the feeling of, but it's obviously kind of hard to easily replicate the feeling of the sketch. Just kind of make it inherently without even like really trying. I even like the pose of the original sketch more, but I realized that I didn't really feel like replicating the pose all over again, so I just tried for something a little bit more interesting. And of course the hair is always going to be the hardest thing to draw on this character, just because there are a lot of like very specific sort of like color like feelings that are going on, and like all the little shapes. Like I just compare like constantly over and over again to the original sketch that I made, just trying to make it as like that as possible. Even though normally when it comes to those kinds of like little details like the moons and stars and little speckles and all that, I usually kind of just don't really use an outline for them. But for some reason for this character, I just kind of felt like making them using lines, like actual outlines instead of just little details. Don't really know why, just kind of has a different like vibe to it. I also decided to use much more thick lines for the line art, just because the character is supposed to be really like tiny, so the bigger lines make it feel smaller. and also because so much of the body is like kind of meant to be kind of a not really like actually glowing, but kind of effectively glowing in a way. So I needed really thick outlines to make the colored outlines later stand out more. I knew it would take so long to get the colors of the hair right, so I didn't even bother starting with it, mainly because the purple part is so quick and easy that I didn't really need to spend any time on it. And even the hands the skin parts are barely even visible, so take 2 seconds to finish that, so I can spend all the time I need on the hair. Main reason why I decided to kind of draw this character now is because I sort of been redesigning the entire species that they're a part of, because it's a species that I've kind of had for a long time, but I wasn't really super satisfied with the total design. But yeah, the species was always sort of like this really tiny sort of people that live in the moon, but they always they were supposed to be really kind of emotional in a way, where they very visibly change with every emotion that they have. But whenever you looked at them normally, you'll see on the screen, is that they always kind of looked like just plain old humans from afar, like cartoony humans. Whereas I needed to really kind of illustrate in the design itself that they weren't really humanoid, or at least they had some sort of weird properties to them that you shouldn't really be thinking about without the context of the story, because I don't want to explain every single time that they're an entirely different alien species. I want to just show them a character and then just say, obviously this is not a human with their own properties and weirdness to them. But yeah, this character Luci is specifically very kind of ethereal and kind of spacey in a way, so I thought it would be a good time to design them and actually get their properties down, and then I could try to retroactively add their details to the other characters of the species. Definitely seem to work out well that way. Now for the most important part of the coloring process, considering all these characters are now going to have really like bright outlines to kind of make them seem very kind of ethereal and magical in a way. Still takes a lot of effort to get right though, because as you'll see with the clothing, over time I kind of just erase a lot of it just because I realize it actually looks a little bit better and much more stable when I don't put so much coloring on the outlines, even though the hair definitely is going to have a lot of coloring. The hair is definitely going to be the most like glowy and magical looking part of all these characters. Yeah, and because I did it for the sketch, I realized that this was actually a good opportunity to do a pretty simple sort of stylized like space background just for the character itself. But yeah, it's very easy to just kind of, for me to put out just like a really simple sort of space drawing. And after doing the background for this character, I realized that I actually should really redo the space background I use for the beginning of the video and like all my other backgrounds and stuff. Yeah, it should pretty much be it. Now that I have a better microphone and a lot of better ideas, I'm actually going to try and produce a lot more like varied content eventually, but I'll definitely be making more videos more directly about that in the future. But yeah, either way, it's the finished drawing.